And we're on. Hi, hello, and hi. My name is Tiffany Jacot, the CEO and founder of Food Robbers. A little bit about Food Robbers. It is a big terms, a centralized platform of promotions from local food and beverage businesses. In small terms, it's a place where you can search for the closest and quickest ROBs around you. And what do I mean by ROBs? What I mean is if you're hungry or if you want a coffee, you'll be able to go on the Food Robbers locator, currently via our website, soon, very coming soon, and www.foodrobbers.com. If you don't want a www dot, you can just put in foodrobbers.com, um, and type in your location, and you'll be able to find an opportunity to get a little something extra value at whatever place that we have listed, um, there. That didn't come out the way I wanted it to. When I have somebody in front of me right now, I'm looking at a screen that is counting down the seconds that I have been recording. Officially, at this point in time, it's been 1 minute and 29 seconds. And to have a script is very unlike me. I am authentic and in the moment, and so it it would take away from what I really want to share. I have me myself and I have been in the food and beverage industry for a decade now. I really like using the word decade because it makes things seem a lot longer than 10 years. You say, as soon as you can say the word decade, it's like it's now a thing, right? So I've been in the food and beverage industry for a while, and it's very noisy today. It's raining here in Colorado, dumping, which is my favorite. The sun is just barely coming out right before it's going to go down for the day. So I've been soaking that up as much as possible. Anyhow, getting back on track, I have been in the food and beverage. How many times are you going to hear that? I've been in the food and beverage industry for a decade now. And my first job ever was working at Subway. And let's be real honest, super duper honest. I hated it. Oh man, I so did not like that job. I I was 16 and I had no people skills. I was really ground down because I have a work ethic. I do that a lot. I smush words together. Worthic. I have a worthic you would not believe. No, I really do. I put a lot of myself into what I do. And that's a trait that can be easily taken advantage of. And when I was younger, it was more likely that I would get taken advantage of by coworkers, bosses, in simple ways where I don't even think that they were doing it, but I didn't have boundaries. So I would, no matter how exhausted I would go in when I shouldn't have for my own personal health. And I would work myself to the bone, and then I would leave even more exhausted than I came in. And I reached a point. I actually had been working for Subway for a few years, and I reached a point where every day I would get the worst anxiety about going in. I knew they would schedule less people when I would be working because they knew my compensation level, even at a young age. And I was drained and I was done, and I didn't have these really important skills that I have now that make me love it. I love working in restaurants, even if whatever situation I'm in, I love it. I love interacting with people. I love being around kitchens. That's the best part. It's the best hack that you can have is getting in with the kitchen. If you don't get in with the kitchen wherever you work in a restaurant, your life is going to be 1,000 times harder. And that's it. Just to me, that environment is one of the most fulfilling environments that I have ever been in. And so even with Subway, I knew that that was kind of my niche, was being in that type of environment. And I began working for the Dirty Bird. If you don't know what the Dirty Bird is, that's going to be Red Robin. And I think it was like a stepping ground. Something about working for corporate establishments is always much more taxing. There's a lot of um, personal aspects that are taken out of it, and so um, they don't have they don't. I don't think that corporations have those interactive skills that you really need to, from my personal level, to love where you're at. So I continued working for the Dirty Bird, where it's the first place I began actually serving. And I quit. The day that I quit, I was already working as a teacher full time and then part time at the Dirty Bird Red Robin. In case I haven't mentioned that, did I not mention that the Dirty Bird is Red Robin? Oh man, it's a family business, dare I say. All of my older siblings have worked for Red Robin, so it kind of fell into my lap. And I, at at 19, I took my stand and I um, decided to quit because I asked for a day off and they scheduled me for it, and then I couldn't find anybody to pick up my shift. And so it was a breaking point for me. Um, I I couldn't do that anymore. So I finished out my year as a teacher. It's probably the longest time that I went without working for a uh, food and beverage establishment. I continued working as a teacher. I ended up nannying, had my child, and after I had my child, was home for what felt like a very long time. I was ready to go back into work. And the first place that I went was a sports bar with a handful of restaurants, grouped restaurants in Phoenix, Arizona, called Zips. And that's really the point in time where I was so excited to be after being home for that length of time. I was so excited to go back to work. And that's really where the mindset switched in me, and every time that I would walk through those doors, I was excited and happy to be there. Not that I wasn't excited and happy to be home, I was just really excited to be around a lot of people, and that's where I flourished there. um and the my mind just went all of the places that my memories of how much I enjoyed that place actually. So as I was there, this part of me was starting to come out where as I was pregnant and after I had my child, I realized how important food was, how important where food comes from, what it condition it is when we put it into our bodies, and that began to mean a lot to me. I began focusing on where the source of my food came from, what exactly it was, and how it interacted with my body. and to top that off, being in the environment of good food. So being able to cultivate a story of growing food to harvesting it to bringing it into a location, cooking it, preparing it, all of the things you need to do, and not just eating it yourself, but the joy that comes from giving that to somebody else. And I really began to hone in on the fact that I enjoyed that. Just it hit a part of myself that has shaped me to this day. And as I was working in this sports bar, I had an occurrence that really affected the trajectory of my life as a whole. I was working a late night, and this couple stumbles in. And this is one of those moments where something's offered to you, and it shows you really what you're seeking. And this was a man by the name of Jeff Krause, who owns Crepe Bar in Tempe. And I did not know that he owned a phenomenal eatery like he does when he came in. And he asked me at that time, what do you want to do with your life? And I vomited all of these desires all over him, which was at that point in time, I wanted to have a farm to table style restaurant where I could actually grow my own food at a certain location and then make my magic with it and serve it to people. That's what I imagined my life going towards. And he, after that, told me that he owned this place in Tempe, Arizona, and if I wanted to come check it out, I could. And so the next day I did. And a couple months later than that, I was staging in the kitchen where Jeff wonderfully showed me the ins and outs. And it was a very brief time. And the impact that it had for me there was immeasurable. I've come across these few moments in my life where the time frame is so short, but what it does for me is monumental. And that same experience happened with me in Central America, which I'll get to. And so I woke up every Saturday morning with the sun, before the sun, maybe even, and I volunteered. I went in and I learned so much, not just about what it means to own a restaurant, own a food and beverage establishment, own something that lit people up, but also what I learned a lot about myself and a lot about what I really wanted out of my time here in this life. And so after that, I started changing a lot of things in around me to meet up with my desires and how I was, the perception I had of the world and what I wanted to have of it, and changing my life to finally meet up with that. In that time, I lost a lot of things, or I let go of a lot of things, better put. A lot. It was 2 years after that I was figuring out who I was. I came to Colorado, moved my family here, started working at another plethora of food and beverage establishments. One was a sushi restaurant I was at for a couple years, a vineyard down in McElmo Canyon, which is one of my favorite places on earth. I was working at the sushi restaurant in Cortez, Colorado, when John Sutcliffe, the owner of Sutcliffe Vineyards, came in, and I don't think I ever actually had the option of whether or not I was going to go work down at the vineyard. It was put into my lap. You're coming down here. He actually brought the manager into his current manager at that time to meet me before I had actually said that I would come work down there. And this was another instance of this place showing me what I want and giving me an opportunity. Down at the vineyard, I was able to be a part of something bigger, something that had a lot of love and passion and creativity in it, and was a bit eccentric. It was ridiculously eccentric, and I was there for just until very recently. It's a place that has filled a part of myself. And by the way, the wine is amazing. It's a start to finish vineyard with a wine process of cold settling, and the canyon that the wines grow in, the grapes grow in, are almost unbearing, right? And it's a absurd landscape down there. I have to be mindful to stay here and not go to these other places as I'm talking about them. It is a fantastic place, and I learned a lot. We would have twice a year these fantastic dinners with about 100 different guests, 6-course paired meals. One's called the Harvest Dinner, which is the second Monday of September every year, and I hope that we get to do it again this year. And to see, there was not a single person there having a bad time of the 4 years that I've done it. It's something that I always look forward to every single year. Being in those where everybody's coming together to have this experience, and it's all centered around food and the art of alchemy, in a way of making something from something else. That's what the art of food is. So you take all of these ingredients, and they're all these separate parts, alone, interacting only by themselves, and then you put them together in this masterful way, and it becomes more than what it once was. And to me, that's what I want out of life. I want to take all these separate parts and smash them together to bring more meaning. So as I moved through that, I decided eventually that I needed to figure more things out for myself. So I sold everything. Sold everything that I had, unless it fit in my car. I sold it, and I had the amazing opportunity to go backpack in Central America for a couple of months. I had never had that type of time to myself. I went from school to being in a relationship to being a mom, and it was the first time that I had time for myself. And I went down Central America, and I took a camera with me. Yeah, I was bringing out, I've always been very linear in my life, and I was bringing out this very creative, this very right brain part of myself that I hadn't explored in the ways that I wanted to. So with my camera and my chacos, I went to Guatemala. From Guatemala, I went to Belize, and then I went to southern Mexico. This was only a 2-month time frame, just like the couple of months that I spent working at Crepe Bar. These couple of months changed me entirely. I learned so much about myself in that small time frame, that what I'm doing today would not be possible without it. I did realize in that zone of becoming a photographer. If you don't know, I am a professional commercial and editorial photographer. I do a lot of work in the food and beverage industry. But when I was down in Central America, it was where I was able to merge these two passions. So my passion for food and my passion for doing something that was very artsy, very creative, and that I could do with I could make a career out of that without having to invest a lot of money. And at that time, that was very desirable, because if you haven't opened a restaurant, you know the time and especially the money that it takes, which has always been my holdback. I know the ties that come with owning a restaurant, because I've been around all types of it, from the tiniest coffee houses to corporate businesses. And unless you're working it at an extremely large scale, it you do it because you love it. So I didn't quite have that skill set to open my own restaurant yet. Maybe one day it'll come. It's still this dream of mine in my head. As I'm going to bed, I do build I build my own restaurant in my head. So maybe one day. Anyhow, as I was down in Central America, I began gravitating towards taking to being in kitchens. Lo and behold, I wanted to be in kitchens, and it was really fun to be able to go and ask people, can I come in your kitchen? And one of the best things about Central America, and it has Antigua, Guatemala, had the best food I have ever had. And the reason why it had the best food that I have ever had is because Antigua was a landing spot for all of these different cultures to come. And so if I went to an Italian restaurant that night, those owners were Italian and they had just moved from Italy a year ago. If I went to a French restaurant or a French bakery, and trust me, I did every morning, they had just come to Antigua from France a couple years ago. So it was authentic. Every little bit of food, even Irish food, the most authentic Irish food I've ever had was in Antigua. And that's because it is this hub of, because the cost of living is so low, people were just flocking there, and then they had the ability to open up their businesses. And the food the food made my knees weak. And it was in that time that I just smashed these two things, which were photography and food. So these two separate items, I decided I wanted to smash them together, and I have created a very successful business out of it. Once I returned back from Central America, and we're getting close to where I am at now, I decided that I still wasn't sure where I wanted to be, when I wanted to be, and how I wanted to be. I did know that I had certain callings that I really wanted to listen to. So I came back to Southwest Colorado, moved to where I am at now. And in that time, as I was developing my business, my photography business, and reaching out to people and starting from scratch, I picked up a job at the best, the best, did I say that yet? The best place I have ever worked for. And I mean that through and through. And it's Steamworks in Durango, Colorado, a part of Peak Food and Beverage, and they own now 3 different establishments here in Durango, El Moro and Birds and Steamworks. So those 3, I have not seen a company, a food and beverage company that is ran so well from top to bottom. Everybody starts at the bottom. If you start working there, you're going to be a busser, even if you are a manager. And that, for somebody that's been in the industry for so long, to me, at first, it was very, very intimidating to my ego, because I've done it all. I've done it all. Why do I have to go start at the bottom? And when I just knew that I should be working there. I could be working there. I don't like using the word should. I did know that that was the place for me at that time. And so I started out at the very bottom, and I worked so hard, because after just my first couple shifts, I realized the brilliance that was in that system and how it reduces turnover. And even if you do have turnover, it's going to be at those lower stages, so that the business itself isn't taking on a lot of backlash from that turnover. It creates loyalty from the employees, because they've worked for what they have, and it builds a family there. And so seeing that, I every day there was not a day that I did not want to walk into those doors. Not a single day. I loved it there. And the only reason that I left very recently, actually, was because I was offered a job as a director of an art center here. So I was going to be the gallery director. And I accepted the position last December. And I gave it my all for 3 months. Gave it my all. Things were changing very quickly, and I still had this pull. I missed working at Steamworks. I missed being around food. And I love the world of art. I really do. And I also really love the world of food. So when the shutdown happened, and here we are, the everything stopped. When it stopped, I had to evaluate myself again for the millionth time. I don't think it'll ever stop. I'll always be evaluating myself. I did, though. I had to look at what I want and how I'm going to exactly do what I think is the best use of my skills and the best way for me to make an impact in this world. So I had developed this idea of Food Robbers about last year. I knew that I wanted to find a way that I could be involved in the food and beverage industry full time while being creative. And I think commercial photography kind of takes you, it can very quickly shoot you off into doing things that aren't exactly in your niche. So Food Robbers initially was this idea that I would go into food and beverage establishments and I would find the best ones in the area. I would write them up with a blog, and I would host them on the website, and they would have to meet a certain criteria. And then I had to kind of start rethinking that idea because yes, it is what I love, and I did a couple of trials of that formula. What I realized is that the pace in which I could do that was very slow, right? So I would have to go be on location to, and I would have to vet these places. So I'd have to go into a city, which I love traveling, so it kind of meets in, but it would be a very slow moving process. And I wanted to find a way to really help food and beverage establishments, be a part of them, and offer something immediately of value to them. So it hit me right before the shutdown exactly how I was going to do this. And here is born what Food Robbers is today, which is a platform of deals from food and beverage restaurants. And this is to get feet in their doors, right? So this is to get me, the consumer, to offer me something extra of value so that I will be more likely to go to that mom and pop coffee shop instead of going with where my comfort zone might be through the recognition of alternative brands. I've learned myself. I'm I know why people do things and when they do them, what's leading them, and I wanted to find a way to hack the system a little bit so that I could drive traffic into the establishments that provided a lot of value to their customers and to their communities. So by incentivizing to grabbing that customer and offering them something more, they can in turn create a better relationship, a bigger relationship with more people. And I want to be that avenue. And I want to merge everything that I know and everything that I have been through and been a part of in this industry. And I want to smash it all together, take all these separate parts, smash it together, and create a package that is going to be of value to all parties included, because that's how the world changes. That's how my world changes, and that's hopefully going to be the way these establishments' worlds change as well. So I'm here day in and day out and moving through some new things. It's always new things that I have to work through, and I'm excited to have the opportunity, to have the desire, and to also have the skills to make this possible. So I think I'm going to call that for this segment. I'm about 35 minutes. Who knows? Who knows who's going to watch this just yet? My name's Tiffany, the CEO and founder of Food Robbers. If you're looking for it, maybe I'll put a little thing in the beginning. If you're looking for it, you can find me on Instagram. When I say me, I mean we. You can find Food Robbers on Instagram at FOODROBBERS. Same goes for Facebook. LinkedIn is, I guess, a thing. So is Twitter. Both of those you can find Food Robbers at. If you're looking for me personally, my Instagram, which is my preferred platform, is at TIFFANYJACOT. And this is technically my first public episode, my very first. These things are called podcasts. Yay! Huh. This is my very first public podcast. And I hope you got something out of it, or at least you know me a little bit more and know that what I'm doing right now means the world. It means so much to me. I really, really look forward to what it can become, because the ideas in my head of where this is going to go are huge. And what it can offer in the long term, pretty great in my thought stream. Anyhow, anywho, any what, anyway, I hope you have the very best morning, day, night, whatever it is, wherever you are.